Thank you so much. Now, do we have public comment?
Yes.
Do I start now?
Yes.
Okay. Fellow senators, at the last meeting, it was apparent that some adjunct representatives' expressions of alarm that the bylaws could possibly come to a vote without their recommendations surprised and possibly alienated you. In my time today, I'll give you some data about who your adjunct faculty colleagues are and make the argument that the Senate would be better served if we senators cultivate a holistic faculty community rather than accept the fractured culture that has been the norm. We are already a lot alike, even if we don't have the same representation for voting rights. According to California Community College's data on PCC, for 2022, the demographic makeup of adjuncts is 5% African American, 1% American Indian Alaska Native, 12% Asian, 25% Hispanic, 1% Pacific Islander, 50% white, and 2% more than one ethnicity, with 4% not reporting. 57% of us are female. Less than 1% are non-binary, and 44% are male. These are close to full-time faculty demographics. Since the height of adjunct numbers in 2015, where we made up more than 54% of all employees, PCC has kept adjuncts at around 45%. In fall 2022, California Community College data listed 375 full-time faculty and 566 part-time, 60%, which has been the average across colleges since at least 2005. To reiterate, adjuncts make up 45% of the total employees at PCC and 60% of the faculty. So why maintain unequal representation and voting rights? Perhaps there is fear that if adjuncts are more intentionally brought into the whole faculty community, we will leave. Contrary to that assumption, department rehire lists show that an average of 43% of adjuncts have been here for more than 10 years, some of us 15 to 20 years. Notably, adjuncts are assigned nearly all dual enrollment courses, a valuable area for the college. Many of us teach 3 classes per semester here, the limit we are allowed under California law. I sincerely appreciate the opportunities I've had at PCC to attend workshops on how to get a full-time position, but that cannot be the only path to equity, because frankly, those positions likely will not come. The data shows that the district wants their faculty to be 60% part-time. If you're worried about a quote-unquote adjunct takeover, your quibble is with the district that maintains this ratio, not with the adjuncts who are equally valuable to students and colleagues. Fully enfranchising part-time faculty will ensure the Senate has more power in our negotiations with the Board of Trustees. We can make this body more effective in developing and implementing policies, but we cannot do it individually and spontaneously. I urge you all to consider the benefits of systematically developing adjuncts equity for the Senate, for all faculty, and for all students. Thank you.
Next is Tracy Bodish.
Good afternoon, senators. I wanted to share with you some of the email exchange I have recently with John Hanley and some of the members of the bylaw committee. One of the things I proposed that we, the AFI committee, propose a new definition for all faculty to include full-time faculty, part-time faculty, library full-time faculty, library part-time faculty, counseling full-time faculty, counseling part-time faculty, non-credit full-time faculty, non-credit part-time faculty. The current bylaws flagrantly discriminate against adjunct faculty. Those bylaws do not align themselves with the esteemed values of which PCC prides itself upon: diversity, inclusivity, equity, and social justice. We just ask for the same liberties and freedoms of full-time faculty. We, the adjunct faculty, are equally committed to students, to our college, and the community, which is PCC. If the Senate Bylaws Committee chooses to have adjuncts remain shackled in their plight of the two-tiered system of equity and inclusion that has been evident since the 1970s, if not longer, the Senate Bylaws Committee has been historically complicit in the perpetuation of continued discrimination and oppression of adjunct faculty. On the top of the fact, it is a violation of the California Ed Code Article 1, Provisions 874A2.8D, that part-time faculty should be considered to be an integral part of their departments and given rights normally afforded to full-time faculty. In another email with John, he states that the Bylaws Committee adopted rules published by the ASCCC. I responded to him by stating the word adopt does not carry the same meaning as should, oblige, contracted, duty-bound, or lawful. Our college is not legally bound to the recommendations from the ASCCC, but I said, if we have this archaic mindset, well, we've always done things this way, I go, with that mindset, nothing grows, nothing develops. It prohibits change. I also shared with Mr. Hanley, provided that mindset of normalcy to a particular ideology is subject to change. For example, we used to have slavery in this country. It was common and widely supported practice. Almost everyone had slaves. It was completely normal until it wasn't. We no longer practice slavery in the United States of America. I asked the Bylaws Committee and every senator to reassess the importance, the value, the contribution, and commitment of adjunct faculty. How many more years do we have to sit at the back of the bus? What would Rosa Parks say? What would Martin Luther King say? Obama ran his 2008 campaign on hope. I hope we have not forgotten the importance of his message. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Next we have Catherine Chang.
Thank you. On November 21st of 2022, when the Academic Senate bylaws came for review, I asked the question of whether the Bylaws Committee would look at the bylaws through a social justice lens, and I was told they would. I found 11 sections in the bylaws with proposed changes that are highly socially unjust. I want to encourage all senators to examine and evaluate the bylaws through a social justice lens. I've shared with you an article about social justice in our governance structures, and on the other side, a social justice lens checklist. The term social justice has several definitions, but the main idea is that in order to achieve equity for all, systems have to be set up in a way where equal rights and opportunities are set in place. Please consider the social justice checklist as you look through the bylaws document that is presented to us today. And also keep in mind that on November 7th, we senators voted to approve our academic senate goals, which included to acknowledge, identify, and work to close existing equity gaps among faculty at BCC, such that all faculty are valued equally and have the same rights and privileges. Instructional versus non-instructional, credit versus non-credit, and full-time versus part-time. What we have to gain by becoming socially just is unity, equity, and collegiality among faculty. And ultimately, we could achieve the bigger goal of equity for our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Carolyn Corey, who is not here, so I'll read it on her behalf. Thank you to the Academic Senate Board, officers, and Bylaws Committee members for your work. My specific recommendations regarding the proposed changes in the bylaws on the agenda today are Section 3.2 Executive Committee. Officers who have served their maximum 6 years will be eligible to serve as an officer again after 1 year absence from the Executive Committee. My suggestion is to change this to a 2-year absence, given the terms are now 2 years. Section 4.2 Eligibility to serve as an academic Senate representative. Senate board members who have served their maximum 4 years will become eligible to serve as a senator again after a 1-year absence. Again, my suggestion is to change this to after a 2-year absence. Section 4.3, alternates to the Academic Senate Board. B, terms of office. Alternate senators serve 1 year with no term limit. The alternate should be elected for a 2-year term, but keep no term limit since they can't vote. Section 4.2, eligibility to serve as an academic Senate representative. Any tenured or 3rd or 4th year tenured track regular faculty member is eligible to serve on the Academic Senate Board. A division having only 1 representative must have a tenured representative. I'm concerned that the above may lead to difficulties for smaller divisions with only one rep. What if the tenured faculty members are unwilling or unable to serve? Someone who is 3rd or 4th year tenure track should be allowed to serve so the division has a representative. Thank you, Carolyn Corey. Okay, next is Shannon Margie.
On
On February 21st, the Bylaws Committee, which I am a member of, met and discussed voting rights for part-timers who make up 60% of the faculty here, teach the same classes, and are required to have the same qualifications as you, our full-time colleagues. But we are disenfranchised by our school bylaws, barred from participating in voting or petitions. I was told that the reason is because the ASCCC's local handbook doesn't recommend it. So I shared my screen and read from the handbook, which does not anywhere say that part-timers shouldn't be allowed to participate in voting or petitions. It actually states that, quote, the full-time faculty may provide for the membership and participation of part-time faculty members, end quote. I was told that, okay, while that may be true, it didn't matter because there were other reasons. For one, part-timers can't be expected to vote because they may be busy working at multiple colleges. I asked what the harm was. Sure, those who are too busy to pay attention wouldn't, but those who wanted to be involved could. Next, I was told that part-timers aren't invested. We're here for a semester or two and then gone to a full-time position. Maybe it once was like that before colleges started hiring mostly part-timers, but these days full-time positions are scarce. Being an adjunct is a career for many. I've been an adjunct here for 15 years. And of the 90 adjuncts in non-credit where I teach, 59 have been here for at least 10 years. We're very invested. Then I was told that if part-timers could vote, maybe a part-timer would vote for something and then get a full-time job elsewhere, and faculty here would be left to live with the result. But how far-fetched? This fear would only be justified if many part-timers all voted the same way and then all got full-time jobs and left en masse. Finally, I was told that full-timers just aren't ready for part-timers to vote. But I am looking at you, my full-time colleagues, and I just don't believe it. It's 2023, and especially in academia, we understand that suppressing people's right to vote is not okay. I pointed out that many other colleges regard all faculty's participation as valuable and allow them to vote, etc. Nothing terrible has happened as a result. I cited California Ed Code, which encourages colleges to let all faculty participate effectively in shared governance. I was told we had to move on. My fellow colleagues, you may not know me well, but please look at me and consider my message. This is a social justice issue, an equity issue. Please take a stand for the humanity, inclusion, and full participation of all the part-timers in your own department, whose interests you are duty-bound to represent and to vote for ultimately.
All right, next is Melissa Michelson.
Actually, can I pass and I'll just say what it's during the agenda item, it's better. I don't want to.
Okay, we're moving on. Next is Jeff Hutt.
Good afternoon. I wanted to speak today on the topic of a communication that was sent out via email in the form of a newsletter. First, I want to say I think all faculty have the right to communicate with one another, and that can happen via email, and I think that is appropriate. What I think is not appropriate is to communicate things in a confusing and potentially misleading and unproductive form. The newsletter, the email in the form of a newsletter was very confusing, and I think we have enough miscommunication and distortions of truth in our society, and we don't need to do that to each other in faculty. I think that we are all duty-bound to be standing together, united in a way where we support each other even when we disagree. But I ask all faculty to please communicate in a way that is clear and that is not confusing. Many of the topics addressed in that communication were discussed in the Senate meeting, but were not evident in that communication. That is misleading and unproductive, and it really is disrespectful to all of us. I also encourage anyone who wants to communicate to faculty that we do so in a way where we're owning our own beliefs and not shrouding it behind statements of we and false bravado in the form of a fake newsletter. Thank you.
Next is Lindsay Ruiz.
My name is Lindsay Ruiz, and I'm speaking out against the PCC faculty newsletter that was sent out by Melissa Michelson on Monday, March 20th. I find many issues not only with the content of the letter, but also its presentation. While it appeared to be legitimate and even used PCC photos, it quickly became apparent that this was not reflective of the faculty at all, but rather an intrusion upon the campus of one senator's grievances. For full transparency, a claimed value in the letter, the author and its contributors should have been named. How else are we to know who is responsible and who is being represented? That newsletter certainly did not represent me or many others I know. It was not sanctioned or approved by any campus constituency group. I'll add that faculty get Senate and campus information from their senators, which is the duty of each division Senate representative. There is no call for one senator to speak on Senate issues to the entire faculty and college. As for the content of this document, it is full of half-truths and misinformation, and its tone is aggressive, uncollegial, and downright disrespectful to our colleagues and leaders on the Senate Executive Board. They are the hardest working people I know on campus, and they are being slandered. In its simplest form, this document is bullying. For the record, I want it known that neither this document nor its author and our contributors speak for or represent me. The campus deserves an explanation for the newsletter that was shared, and the entire Senate Executive Board deserve a profound apology. I beg that this inaugural issue be its last. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is a message from Dustin Hanby, and I'll read it on his behalf. Regarding the unauthorized PCC faculty newsletter. Just a quick message to support of you, Gina, and all you have done and continue to do as our Senate leader. This extends to the whole executive board. Melissa's email this morning was borderline slander and totally inappropriate. I'm glad you responded so thoughtfully and fairly to what must have been awful to read. Best, Dustin. Okay. Last statement is going to be read on behalf of the TABE Executive Board and Build Women. To whom it may concern, this letter is written in support of the physical and emotional well-being of the Black women serving in roles on Academic Senate Executive Team. The Executive Board of TABE, the Association of Black Employees at PCC, and Build Women, PCC's Black Women's Organization, offers this letter of solidarity for its members who are serving in these roles. The most recent attack and increased scrutiny has come from an unauthorized newsletter that has unnecessarily fixed its crosshairs on the Black Academic Senate President and her majority Black Executive Board. This unauthorized newsletter asks for transparency but lacks an author's name, highlights multiple term appointments of Dr. Lopez, but conveniently forgets to mention she has served in multiple capacities on the Academic Senate Board during these terms, mentions administrative tasks that had not occurred during the current board's tenure, but fails to acknowledge that the Academic Senate was without administrative assistance for 2 months, with the first attempt at hiring that administrative assistant position ending in a failed search. Additionally, the Academic Senate was without a parliamentarian for 5 months, resulting in those tasks being relegated to these individuals. Fails to acknowledge that the Black leadership who makes up the Academic Senate Executive Board endured significant cultural taxation. Cultural taxation describes the unique burden placed on minoritized faculty who carry out their responsibilities while serving their educational institutions. This burden can include additional workloads without compensation, expectations to mentor or take care of the needs of students of color, even when that is not their primary role, or over-scrutinization, which is, in this case, is happening via this unauthorized newsletter, and has been witnessed by many in Senate proceedings in the form of selective interrogation, instigation of unnecessary complications, and bullying. Research has shown that experiences of race-based harassment negatively impacts health and may result in depression, hypertension, and anxiety. None of these health issues should be expected outcomes for Academic Senate Executive Board members. To address this negative behavior, its unwanted consequences, Senate Bill 1100 amends the Brown Act to provide clarification regarding the authority of a local agency's governing body to remove a disruptive member of the public from an opening meeting in order to maintain order during the meeting after a warning. We encourage the Academic Senate to utilize this mechanism for meeting attendees who flout decorum rules, egregiously ignore time limits, bully colleagues, and engage in other forms of disorderly conduct. For the sake of the continuity of college business and the safety of Black women in the space, we ask that this procedure be used as necessary. In solidarity, TAPE Executive Board, Build Women. That concludes the statements.
Point of information. I would like to know what order you chose to read all the comments. Are they based on the time that the comment is submitted, or do you move the order at your will?
I put them in the order that they're received.
So what time did you receive my request to speak?
I received your request this afternoon.
At what time? 2:45, right?
Correct.
So all of those other ones were submitted. Can you confirm that they were submitted
Are you
between
asking
2:45?
Are you asking to review my email?
No, I'm just curious what time all those comments
Please
were.
submit a request to review my email.
Which email?
Either one.
I'm sorry, which email?
Either one. Academic Senate or my work email. If you'd like to audit my email,
Oh, no, I mean all the comments that got requested from
Submitted.
Senator Huff and from.
Here's what you can do. You can contact her after this meeting. She's answered your question, and that's it.
She hasn't. I wanted to know.
Well, we're
what
moving
time the
forward,
comments-
and this is your warning about being disruptive.
is there
During this
something in the
meeting.
bylaws that says that I need to read it in a particular order?
No, I was asking
Please
you
point
what
it out in
order
the
you
bylaws.
follow.
Done. Done.
I was asking what order you follow.
Again, this is your warning.
Point it out in the bylaws. Where is it?
Yes, Jennifer.
Do you reread the last paragraph about the Brown Act? I just didn't get the details on that. I'm sorry.
SB 1100.
SB.
Okay, we're moving forward, and make sure no hands. I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes for March 13th, 2023. Yes, Meredith? Okay, do I have a second? Second by Jose. Are there any objections? Seeing none, we can approve this by unanimous consent. Are there any objections? No. Okay, it's approved. Next, PCCFA. Bevel, are you here representing PCCFA?
Yeah, believe it or not. Hi, everyone. Before I give my report, I do want to say to the Academic Senate, for all the senators, that we need to preserve a positive work climate. We have students in the room, ladies and gentlemen, and we need to set examples. And yes, you may not agree with everything that someone else does or says, but when you come to the meeting, you should be conducting yourself in a professional manner. That's all we're asking for, right? No one wants to come to a meeting and not have a positive experience. In terms of the FA, we are continuing to negotiate with the district. I just came out of a negotiation session, believe it or not, but I am here because I'm a senator as well, and it's part of my responsibility. We are very confident in the negotiations that we've had with the district. We believe that we are very close to a contract with the district, and that contract is going to provide I think value for both full-time and part-time faculty. So we look forward to concluding those negotiations as soon as possible. Thank you.
Okay, Adjunct Faculty.
Good afternoon again, senators, and before I give my report, I'd like to echo my sentiments with how you opened your report, Bevel, that although sometimes we may disagree, it doesn't mean that we may have anything personal against someone because we have a disagreement. I might be in disagreement all the time with a lot of you, but it doesn't mean I don't like you. It doesn't mean I want to have a cup of coffee with you. And I think it's really important that we remind ourselves that we are working together for a common good. Good news from the AFI report. We had our first ever meet and greet last Thursday on campus in GM 103 at noon to 1. And we had pretty good turnout from not only part-time faculty, we had a member from the management team, I'm still meeting a lot of people that day. Gina came and Armia came, and we had snacks, which were kindly donated by this organization, so thanks for the snacks. And I brought some too, and Meredith brought coffee, and we talked, and it was positive, and just looking for better ways to make, obviously, life for adjuncts, but because we had input from people from all over the college, it was a very positive meet and greet, and maybe we may do another one of those again in the future, because people stayed after and talked for an additional hour, which was great. So I didn't leave at 1 o'clock, I stayed till like 2:15, something like that. Anyway, that concludes my report. Thanks for listening.
Hey, Classified Senate.
No report, but I did want to thank those of you in this room who reached out to their classified or recommended people to join the classified Senate. I'm actually, I think, almost at a full Senate, so we'll see what happens there, but please keep encouraging classified in your area to join. Thank you.
Associated Students.
Hello. So the Associated Students Executive Board and our academic committee has reviewed the anti-racism policy, and we will be discussing the draft again at our meeting this Wednesday. Campus Activities Committee is hosting an event called Foothill and Chill on March 30th at 11 a.m. at PCC's Foothill campus. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Management Association.
Yeah. So the Management Association at the last board meeting read a letter of concern to our Board of Trustees. We sent that letter out to all the shared governance groups on campus, and if you haven't read it, circulating around, or I can get it to you. We wanted to emphasize, we've heard that some people thought that Dr. Andrew Jonas put us up to that, and we want to emphasize that she did not put us up to that, and that letter is not about Dr. Andrew Jonas. It's about our concerns we have with our Board of Trustees. And in that letter, we identified, I think, 3 different areas that put our accreditation at risk, and we're concerned about that as well. So we're continuing to engage with the Board of Trustees and air our concerns, and we'll have this meeting. That's it.
Thank you. Okay, Academic Senate Officers Reports. President, that's me. Okay. First, winter messaging will be going out to students about what's going to happen for winter, but not until after. The district is waiting for the FA to approve the winter calendars, and then they'll send out that messaging. Also, we were falsely accused of not reporting out the things that we talked about in Kaplan. I just want to be clear to the Senate board that what we talked about in Kaplan was emergency preparedness, so we brought Candace Jones in to talk about that. We talked about remote meeting, but we brought Alex in so that he can present himself, and we also talked about winter, and we brought Dr. Ramirez in to talk about that. So we didn't have a Kaplan report last meeting. Instead, we brought the administration in to talk about it themselves. So I just want to be clear. All accusations against us shouldn't be believed. And that's it for me for now. Go ahead, Vice President.
Okay, I was gonna put something on the screen, but I just want everybody to know I can barely breathe right now. I can barely breathe. My body is shaking, but you cannot see it. I'm a Black woman. And for some of y'all to compare your struggle for adjunct stuff to slavery, I want to vomit on this floor. How dare you? If you want something, fight for it. We're all about the fight. This is a democratic process. We've been more than civil, but you went too far. Voter suppression, rape, murder, children taken away. That's just slavery in a nutshell. Didn't mention taken from our homeland. Didn't mention years of Jim Crow that came after. Not to mention my father-in-law picked cotton. Let's be clear. This is not that far for us. So if you want something, fight for it. But I will not sit here and allow you, anybody, to compare this struggle to slavery. How dare you? Do not do it again in my presence, because you will hear me. We've been more than civil. Look at this board. How much do you think that hurts? We all work hard. And if you know anything about the history of Black people in this country, we work harder than anybody else to get half of everything. Regardless of your beliefs, regardless of what you want, fight for it, that's fine. Be professional and collegial. Because I'm being collegial as hell right now. This should be your example.
Professor Walker.
Can we comment to that?
No. This is her report. If you have questions,
My report.
I have a question then. If I can have a question, I will comment. Does everybody know that I'm also Black?
I don't know that that makes a difference.
Okay, I think it does.
Okay.
I'm Black all day long.
It doesn't.
Every day.
White passing.
Well, you started your thing with saying that you're
Okay,
a Black
this is,
woman.
let's be clear. I'm not hearing a conversation.
Okay.
I'm not hearing a question. Again, if it's something that you want to discuss after the meeting or personally with Professor Walker, go ahead, but we're not about to sit here and argue.
I just
The
asked
last
a question
thing
in
we
the
need-
Senate. Did they know I'm Black? They
Yes,
don't have
we
to give
know.
an
We
answer.
know that you said that your father is Black. We've heard that.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
What's your point?
So she can ask a question, but I can't.
You just
You
asked
did ask
yours.
a question.
What's your
And it's
point?
her report.
But I asked it of the senators,
Okay. You just said the executive committee.
of everyone.
That's the board. This is the executive committee.
I
That's
said
the
of the
board.
senators and senators.
Yes, we're going to move on because I don't know what it is, what this is. We're supposed to be collegial. We're supposed to be the leaders of the campus. And all of this animosity and all of this garbage, trust me, it's not coming from this way. We have been more than collegial, even though we've been bad-mouthed, lied about, talked to, bullied, harassed. But we have been very collegial and tried to demonstrate leadership as faculty on campus. And here's the trick part. I keep telling you, you can come and talk to us. Nobody's made one appointment. Melissa, all this garbage that she puts out there hasn't made one appointment to talk to me personally. Even though my door is open. All of our doors are open. If you have things that you would like to talk to us about, instead of airing it all here in an argument, we are all available. Please utilize that. But this time out for this. Me personally, I'm tired of this. And if you think you could do better, you probably should have ran. Secretary's report.
No report.
Treasurer's report. Give me 1 second.
Okay, so as I mentioned at our last meeting, our income at current time is limited to the donations that we're receiving, which is $181 per month, I believe, at this time. So the only increase in our current balances is from $19,402.90
to $19,583.90 in our savings account. Our checking account is stable at $791.06. So our overall balance is $20,374.96. I would also like to share from Peter Castro, chemistry instructor, who is the chair of the scholarship committee. We will be having our scholarship ceremony following our last board meeting on April 24th. Immediately following, so probably starting at 5:30. This is an opportunity for you all to stay and help us celebrate the accomplishments of our students, most of whom will be transferring. So please do kind of put that into your calendar now for April 24th. Thank you. This concludes my report.
Okay, any questions? Yes.
I have a question. Are you able to say how many students are getting a scholarship?
I don't have that now, but I should have it at the next meeting, so I can get that from Peter.
And is there a set amount per student that the Senate gives from our treasury?
I believe we have a number of different scholarships of different award amounts, and it is a separate fund than our savings and checking accounts that I'm showing here.
And one last question. Last time you mentioned fundraiser.
Yes.
Is that still happening?
It is. Sorry, we've been distracted with other business, so I will get that together before our next meeting.
Okay, any other questions for the treasurer? Okay, moving on. Bylaws Committee, John. I am so sorry. I forgot the information items. My bad. Sorry, I went forward. Student Services Update. Myriam Altounji, Dr. Myriam Altounji.
Hi, everyone. I have the student services update for today. Just a reminder that we have commencement that's coming up on May 5th. We also have a number of different ceremonies related to commencement and graduation for our completing students for various groups. So you can check it, you can see this on the commencement website, and it links directly to the details of each and every event. Our summer registration is underway. We are a week and a day in, and we started registration much sooner than we have in the past, so we don't have any comparative numbers to this far ahead. So once we start catching up to the 30 days before start of term, we'll be able to see how we're comparing. But at this point, as of today, we have 2,395 students who've registered out of it's about 4,000 students who've had the ability to register to this date. So we're continuing registration all the way through April 5th. And then lastly, in terms of registration and retention, we're doing a lot of work around retaining our students in terms of supporting them through various holds, errors during the registration process, prerequisite clearances with helping them get their transcripts in, getting those cleared out, and making sure that if they have any outstanding debt, that we really help navigate them to financial services, including financial aid, and potentially debt relief if we have the funding available for their particular needs. So a lot of our programs are working very hard, our success coaches, et cetera, and our counselors and our faculty leads in different areas that are overseeing programs to really help our students navigate the registration process. Summer is usually pretty low and it's comparatively to spring. It's about 14 to 15,000 students is usually what we hit in terms of head count. And so we're really, the gear up for summer is really helping us gear up for fall as well. So all the work that's going into the registration prep for summer will also be helping our students get registered and prepared for fall. And that is my report.
Are there any, yes, Lyman.
Yeah, can you make that just a little bigger really quick? that very slide.
This is an example of the EOPS retention dashboard that I've created for them. So,
I just don't know what those numbers,
so this is the date of registration. These are the number of total number of students that could have registered on that date, the number that did register, the number that did not register. And so so it follows them throughout the registration cycle, and you can see a percentage of students who have registered or haven't. And you can also see of the students who had registration errors, how many did and were unable to register. And so the staff basically can dig into that and see what's going on with which student and really intentionally reach out to them and try to help support them throughout the process.
I'm just trying to, how is it that we already have data from people who were supposed to be registering?
Oh, it's because if they weren't matriculated and finished a step towards matriculation, they get bumped up. So this only gets updated once a day, and these things are happening all throughout the day.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, Melissa.
When is the schedule of classes going live for the fall?
But it is on our website. Was it 15th? The 15th of April? Yeah, thank you, Joe. But let me just show you. Sorry, ignore all these tabs. Nothing to see here. But if you go to this site, under academic calendars, you can see under registration calendars, and you'll be able to see what fall and spring registration timelines look like, and the breakdown of who registers on which date. So it's all there.
Yes, Danielle.
I have a question about fraudulent enrollment. I have been getting a bunch of emails to add my class that started today, and they're all following like an exact template. I know before you were saying to report the ones that are actually enrolled, but if they're trying to get in your class, like, do we still fill out that form?
Please do report those as well. You can just forward me those emails.
Okay, yeah, I added them all into one and forwarded them to you, but I didn't know if there's a different,
No, that's perfect. Yeah, that seems to be happening. That's fun and new.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just didn't know if there's anything on my end about rejecting someone's ad code, if there's still room in my class, like I won't have anything back on me for doing that.
Let's talk more specifically about your cases. But if anyone else has that situation happening, just try to forward them over to me. If you want a faster answer, email it directly to me. I'm sorry, the ticket is proving to be a little harder to get to. But I do like having a log in the ticketing system.
Okay, Jose?
Can she repeat what the issue was? Like, what issue were you facing?
I have a 6-week class that starts today, and just as of last week, I was getting a bunch of emails from PCC emails of students that were wanting to add my class, but they're following like an exact template, like they're copying and pasting it, and they just put in their name and ID number, but everything else is verbatim. And I got like maybe about 11 of those, something like that. And so I know like these aren't real students, they're all using the word for word the same email. But I just don't want to have anything come back on me for not letting someone add my class.
Yep. One thing that I have suggested when that's come up is that you offer to meet with the student.
Okay.
So if they're willing to meet with you over a Zoom, just be like, hey, we just need 5 minutes of your time to confirm your identity, and then you can give them an ad code. That's an in your report sort of thing. Well, in the meantime, if they are fraudulent, I'll just start flagging them in our system.
But I don't need to respond to them, do I?
No. I mean, if they're that blatantly, like, whatever, but if you did want to choose to just be like, hey, do a Zoom, I'm almost willing to put money on it that they're not going to respond.
Okay.
But it is a curiosity that I have to see, right, and I can't test that out myself. So if you're willing to do it, it might be an interesting test to see what happens.
Yeah, group ad code Zoom.
Right. Okay, I'm sorry, we are out of time. So I need a motion to extend. Jeff, motion to extend. Sal was a second. Are there any objections to extending this for another 5 minutes? Seeing none, we can approve it by unanimous consent. There you go, Jeff.
I was trying to be helpful, but I was wrong. It's not the 15th. I thought it was, I have it right here. It's the 3rd of April.
Thank you. Oh, here it is. It's actually right up on the screen. Thank you, Jeff.
So next week.
Next week, yes. So the schedule comes out, and it's coming out sooner than we normally put it out. So, but registration actually kicks off on May 22nd.
Yes, Melissa.
I guess the reason I ask is because I don't know if it's the same across the campus, but full-time faculty haven't gotten their schedules for fall yet. Is that the same elsewhere? Because I'm just wondering if you do. Okay, so it might be isolated in my department, but I
think it just depends on division, so just try to reach out to your dean.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Dr. Altounji. Okay, next we have Vice President Candace Jones with a COVID protocol update. VP Jones, you have the floor. Darlene is on the list. Okay, Darlene, I will call you right after.
Oh, no worries.
No worries. Okay.
I jumped the queue.
Yeah, I can't read today.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm back. I mentioned 2 weeks ago and gave y'all a little activity to do with your areas, and I'm here to collect some feedback based on your discussions with your campus areas. I don't know which the West, if you just want to raise your hand and I'll take notes. I'll just give a quick caveat or a quick sort of update. We're continuing to process input that we're receiving from a variety of our constituent groups. So our associated students, our classified senate, our management association, as well as various sort of packets of folks in our community. So that we can move forward with some level of understanding about how folks feel about that, so that either way, whatever decision is made, that we're providing the appropriate resources necessary for folks to kind of move forward with whatever decision is made. So I will, Dr. Lopez, do I just open to the floor? Can you call on folks if they want to?
Yes, if you have an update or if you did a poll for your department, if you want to talk about any of that. Yes, Taryn.
Yes, the kinesiology, health, and athletics are for getting rid of the restriction of having a vaccine. And especially as a coach, it is a lot easier to recruit and bring people to PCC without any more limitations.
Lindsay?
In English, the majority of people who responded to me, I'm not sure if they also responded to Tim, want to keep the vaccination requirement in place. There was only one person who didn't want it, and a few people wondered what the experts were saying. They want more information about experts.
Can I'll ask one clarifying question to you both. Is that keeping for both students and employees?
Ours is for both.
Okay, and both. And then let me respond to the question. All of the local city of Pasadena does not have a vaccine mandate for its employees. It's a public entity, so it's hard to compare as it relates to students, but at least for their employees that work for the city, neither does LA County's measures end at the end of this month. Healthcare workers continue to have their mandates through May 11th, at least at this point. Because that's when the federal regulations end, vaccine protocols, whether it relates to indoor masking or vaccination protocols.
Till May 11th.
May 11th for healthcare workers.
Okay, and Lean?
Our division, 40 people responded to the survey. 77.5% says yes to keep the mandate for both staff and students. One faculty comment that she wanted to know more what it means to be vaccinated, like boosters, how many boosters, what's the latest date, and so forth. And someone else said something to you.
We also had a couple of faculty say that they wanted a data-driven choice to connect our choices to something like the Pasadena Health Department, where the decisions would automatically be made by professionals in epidemiology, and then those rules would translate automatically. If we could have some kind of a system where if they say masks, we do masks. If they say vaccines, we do vaccines, so that we're more connected to professionals in that area.
Thank you.
I'll go this way, Jennifer, then Jose, and then Mariah.
Social Sciences Department voiced no opposition to removing the mandate.
Jose?
So for math, 17 of our colleagues responded to the poll. 58.8% said yes to keeping the requirements for both, and 41.2% said no to not keeping them. And for the ones that voted yes to keeping them, most of them had the argument of they wanted to feel safe, somewhat secure and comfortable coming to campus. And the ones that say no feel that COVID is not a threat anymore, and that they feel like both students and employees should not be required to have it.
Okay, Mariah?
First, I'm jealous that you guys had majority. Mine was 50-50 split. But regardless, for both sides, for those who voted no and yes, they both had the consensus that the vaccine should be presented in the same way, that the flu shot highly recommended, the annual flu shot's highly recommended, but it's not a mandated policy. So.
Okay, was there anyone else who wanted to report on from their department? Yes, Melissa. I need a motion, Jose. Motion to extend by 5 minutes. Lee, is that a second? Are there any objections to extending this by 5 minutes? Seeing none, we will approve it by unanimous consent. Melissa.
Non-credit, anecdotally, for those that responded, they said that they don't find the need anymore. And thank you, Candace. I sent you those emails. A lot of it was similar to natural sciences. They want a data-driven, choice. So I thank you for getting the email to me. I haven't seen it. I haven't read it yet.
Anyone else? Okay.
Thank you so much. I'll be back at some point. I promise.
And I want to apologize to the Senate. I am off my game today. I had a death in the family on Friday, and I'm still trying to deal with that. And I forgot to call Darlene. Come on, Darlene. Thank you.
Come on, I win a prize. I'll be excited. Thank you, everybody, for having me here today. I'm actually just coming to kind of speak on an informational item. Some of you may be aware that our bookstore contract is actually ending at the end of June. And so I'm putting together an informal source selection committee, and I really would love to have one representative from each constituency group. It's a volunteer. Basically, we had our job walk last Friday for the request for proposals that went out. We have 2, and so basically it's not very intense, but it's just to review the proposals. We get together as a group, we discuss it, come up with our recommendations from each of the constituency groups, and then make our decision ultimately to go to the May board for award. So if anybody is interested, please email me. I can give you guys my email. Oh, the RFP stands for a request for proposals. So basically how that works is we have kind of a general scope. It's a bookstore. So what we really do with a request for proposals is we leave it to the vendor to kind of provide us with an idea of how they would run the bookstore. So long as it obviously meets the needs that are addressed in the request for proposals, that's what that means. So if anybody is interested in volunteering, as I stated, I would love to have a faculty representative. Send me an email and I will get you guys on board. That's it.
Yes, Anya.
Are you limiting for only one faculty to join, or if multiple are interested?
I'm just doing one, it's just small selection source committee because we only have 2 to review. So I have a student rep, I have a classified senate rep, I have a management association rep, and so I just need a faculty rep. And I also have a CSEA rep as well. So.
I just would like to state that the library has been mentioned in previous contracts and how librarians are able to refer students in finding their required materials. So I really hope that the librarians will be given consideration for that position.
Absolutely. Again, send me an email if you would like to volunteer. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yes, Melissa.
Oh, sorry.
Well, I just wanted to make sure I understood this right because I don't see, this is just for, you're looking into new contracts for the bookstore.
Yes,
And
so
you're looking for a committee to work on that.
it's an informal committee, so vendor contracts don't go through the shared governance process. So I'm just putting together, much like I did with our food services, just a small selection source committee.
And then just a quick follow-up. I don't know if you were aware of, a few months ago, Senator here read a public comment about issues with the current bookstore.
I'm not aware of that.
You are aware?
I'm not aware of that.
Okay. I recommend, hopefully you'll get that in the future because I think the problem is campus-wide. Is there a possibility for the current bookstore to renew, or are they kind of out?
Actually, their contract ends in June. We had two that responded, two vendors that responded. One is the current bookstore. So that's what the selection source committee is for, so that we can review the proposals and discuss.
Okay, any other questions about the RFP? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, this time for real, John, it's you.
But not for the bylaws.
Not for bylaws.
I'm just here to announce the results of the Academic Senate officer election. I don't know how much detail you want here. There were 157 ballots submitted for president. Gina Lopez won. For vice president, Armia Walker. For secretary, Sheila Rose. And for treasurer, Lindsay Ruiz. And I can give more detail, but or send this out. And I think this will come out in an email tomorrow to everyone. Congratulations.
Yes. So I'm just wondering, how did you, like, the total votes was 157?
So the total ballots received was 157, but
Okay.
not every ballot voted for every position.
No,
So-
I understand. So, but I was just trying to figure out how many people voted. Okay, thank you.
157 people, well, and some of them didn't actually vote, but they submitted silly names. There's a couple of votes for Anastasia Beaverhausen, who is a pseudonym on the sitcom Will and Grace.
You gotta love that. Any other questions? Yes, Melissa.
I was just wondering, I'm on the bylaws, I'm on the elections committee now, and I raised the point of concern to you and the chair. You're not the chair, are you? Okay, so I raised it to the chair and to everybody in the committee. And I'm just wondering if you eventually, or someone from the committee eventually talked to our parliamentarian. I requested that since the meeting, the voting count wasn't publicized for the public to know about, and none of the meetings from February 2021 all the way till today have been on board docs. So I was wondering if the committee has asked the parliamentarian. I don't know if I should ask the parliamentarian or you.
That would be a question for the chair. I'm just in her seat today because I had to be here for something else. I'm not the chair of that committee.
May I ask our parliamentarian?
The question is regarding
Have you
protocol or?
the fact that none of the meetings from February 2021 in the elections committee have been put on board docs? And this last vote count meeting on Friday afternoon was not on board docs. Is that okay?
I'll research the bylaws and report back to the Senate.
I think it's Brown Act.
I do it all.
Are there any other questions? Thank you, John. Okay. It doesn't look like we have a rep from the RAMP committee. I know Sam couldn't make it, but he's going to try and send someone else. It doesn't look like they may be here today, so we'll table that for the next meeting. Now, John, I don't know why. Yes, Melissa.
Yeah, I had my public comment or my comment that I was saving for that item.
What item?
The elections.
Elections or rank?
Elections. I just wanted to congratulate the returning executive senators and the new executive senator. All of you ran on a slate together based on social justice and student equity. Looking at your campaign candidate statements, which over 600 faculty at PCC didn't get because they aren't franchised to vote here. Dr. Lopez said she's dedicated to being a strong advocate for faculty, and it's her goal to propel social justice and student equity and liberatory education. Our treasurer said she'll also continue to fight for social justice and equity and liberatory education, similar to our Vice President Walker, and Secretary Rose also writes she cares for historic marginalization at the college. I look forward to seeing these concepts materialize in your actions, advocacy, and votes. Thank you.
Okay. Now we will move forward. John, you're back up. Bylaws.
I don't know if you want to pull them up, do you have them, or can I pull them out here myself?
Sure.
Or?
Everyone has a copy of them, but
Okay,
you
I'll
can
put
put
on
them
a
up.
copy of them then.
Probably see one of those.
So this, I believe, is our third read of the bylaws. The last time, I was here, or the last time these were presented, I wasn't here the last time. I think the only thing that's changed since the last time these were presented is in section, I'll just easier to find it here. We added library back in, so we, we had sort of done some reorg right here, so in addition to, all academic or all instructional divisions get reps, and then there was some redundancy here, so we took out the non-credit faculty because they are an instructional division, so that's already taken care of. And then we had taken out library, but then after the last time we presented these, library faculty alerted us that that was problematic and there were reasons that they should be separate. So we put those back in. Those are the only changes since the last time I was here. I did also want to just clarify, if the Senate chooses to vote today, what you'd be voting on is whether to put these bylaws up for a vote of the full faculty. So the Senate doesn't change the bylaws, they just are voting to put them up to a vote of the full faculty. And if you don't choose to do that, I would ask that you make a motion to at least instruct the bylaws committee what you want us to do. In the past, we'd get, a couple faculty saying something, and I don't have a sense if that's how everyone feels, or if it's, one or two voices. So, questions?
Yes, Catherine.
So you said that the Senate doesn't get to change the bylaws?
So the way the process works is the Senate, this body, can proposes an amendment. So that's what the bylaws committee kind of does the dirty work of putting this together. If the Senate wants to propose this, they can propose that the whole faculty vote to adopt this as the bylaws. But this won't become, even if the Senate votes today, this doesn't become the new bylaws. The entire faculty have to vote on that.
Go ahead, Catherine.
So did the bylaws committee look at this through a social justice lens to close or make attempts to close the equity gap between faculty?
If you're talking about the issue of part-time and full-time faculty, we did discuss that on numerous occasions.
Okay, and what was the outcome of that?
The committee felt it best to keep the bylaws as is in that regard.
And how is that equitable to part-time?
Well, the committee, I think the consensus of the committee was that there are enough differences between full-time faculty and part-time faculty that it's not clear how we might sort of give part-time faculty some sort of voting rights, and we agreed we might come back to that at a later time. For instance, in my division anyway, part-time faculty might teach one class here, one class at Cypress, one class at Cerritos, and then they're off until they got their full-time job, just like I was when I was a part-timer. So it's, part-time faculty and full-time faculty are both awesome, but they are sort of different in that regard. And so for that reason and others, such for instance, you guys are all, or the full-time faculty here are required to do 5.5 hours of shared governance and are in fact paid to do it. Part-time faculty are not required to, and therefore are not paid to do it. So that's another issue that the committee discussed. So I think for those reasons.
Well, voting is not part of shared governance. That's just voting rights, so.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Yes, Shannon?
Yeah, two things. I believe when you mentioned that if we propose it in here, then it goes to a vote of the full faculty or all the faculty. I believe, isn't it actually, it only goes to the full-time faculty to vote on, right? Not.
Yes, the current bylaws have to be changed by a vote of the full-time faculty.
And my other point is that in that meeting where you decided the 4 full-timers and I were present at, the 4 full-timers decided to disregard all of the suggestions from the AFI faculty committee on behalf of the 600 or so part-timers that work at this college and are valuable members. I believe that it would be better to bring that to this body and let us decide whether we want to propose that and let the full-time faculty members vote on it. Seems to me would be more just than to just have 4 full-timers say no.
Well, that's why the bylaws committee doesn't get to put this up to a full vote. We just get to propose it to the academic senate, and this body decides whether they want to put it up for a vote or send it back or make changes.
But it hasn't been proposed to the academic senate.
I'm not a member of this senate. I don't get to propose anything in this body.
Well, we could have. At that meeting, if we had agreed jointly to bring it to this body, then at that time, we could have had discussion on it, and we could have voted on whether we want to send it out to all full-timers or not. But as it is, you guys never got that chance because it was killed in committee.
Okay. What I can say to that is, I think everybody on here, on this academic senate board and across campus have the ability to get on the bylaws committee so that they can serve. And that's the committee is there to do this work so that we don't have to do it here, but they can't move it forward without the say of this body. So I understand what you're saying. I just don't know that it would be practical. That's what committees, that's why there's subcommittees of the academic senate, because we can't do everything in the 2 hours that we're here.
I feel like the people here, they may not be very acquainted with what the issues are of part-timers. They may not even have known before today that part-timers aren't allowed to vote or fully participate in democratic processes of this campus. So I would really like to ask you guys whether you would support democratically here deciding whether to bring it forward to all faculty.
I'm sorry, that's not how this works, Shannon. There is a process that we follow, and this is part of the process. So unfortunately, we cannot do that, and I just talked to our parliamentarian to double check. That's not part of the process to just jump in and overrule what the subcommittee already, with the work that they've already put in. Yes, Melissa.
I have a few questions about the draft, and thank you to the bylaws committee. I've been on the bylaws committee for years. I know it takes a while to draft things, to hear what happened in the Senate, what the discussion was, what the concerns are of the senators, because as you're saying, it's not the bylaws committee purview to, pass something. It's ours. So you guys have created a document, and it's for us to approve or change. So thank you for that work. I just have a few questions. Now, last time you weren't here, but Dr. Lopez was doing the presentation, and I brought up a bunch of concerns. I think other faculty have too. But I don't see them at all in the bylaws. And so, which is fine, but I'm wondering, and then I emailed you at what meeting you guys had discussed this. I also emailed the committee chair and everybody, and I asked my concerns because Dr. Lopez said, send them to the committee. We don't need to talk about it here. The committee will handle it, and then, that's the process. So I followed the process, but nothing happened.
What's your question, Melissa?
What I've done is, so I have some questions about the bylaws. I put them here for the senators because sending them in an email just didn't seem to take. So I want to make sure you get a copy of this as well. Can you get that all the way over there?
Yeah, if you have stuff to distribute that.
This is not
that's not a forum for that. It's not a presentation.
So
If you
my
have a question
questions-
for him, you
Well,
can.
I'm not able to present my questions, so I put
Yeah,
them
you can
Melissa.
ask him.
I've already called you out of order once. I don't want to have you removed. This is out of order.
Well, I'd like to go over my
You
questions.
just ask him the question.
Okay. Well, I thought it would be easier if you had it in front of them.
Well, he doesn't
Yes,
need 20
Lyman.
copies.
Motion to extend?
Let's open it.
Thank you, Lyman. Do I have a second? Yes, Margaret, thank you. Any objections? Okay, then we can approve this by unanimous consent. Thank you.
So these aren't really questions, but they're suggestions for changes. They're on page 2. How many honorary members are there? Who are they? What are their rights and duties? I'm not sure if we have those as members. 3.2A, I recommend looking at that to be elected and continue in office. 3.2D, when it says shall review such actions, what exactly does review mean? Maybe you could go deeper into that for clarity. Page 3, Article 4, you mentioned in the bylaws it says student support, but I'm wondering, and then there's a chart here. Student support, is that the dean where it's vacant? Or does that mean student services? I think that should be more clear. Page 4, I recommend wherever it says instructional divisions in the bylaws, because currently in the chart, it refers to academic divisions. So I wonder if you want to firm that up, so it's clear that it's not instructional divisions anymore, but they're called academic divisions. I also recommend keeping the library, non-credit, and counseling listed out there. The library was, I also made it clear that for non-credit, we want to be listed. The library and BAMS have been subsumed. English, languages, and ESL have been subsumed, meaning the combined. And so I'm not sure why the library got extracted again from the subsumption. That's a noun. So that's great. And so I would also recommend doing the same and making sure counseling is intact, library, and non-credit. On page 4, 4.3, there's some contradictory language. Part A and B contradict each other about the term limits. So same as regular senators, it says for alternates it should be the same as regular senators with no term limit, but according to another section of the bylaws, it's suggesting senators should have term limits, so that could be cleaned up. Also, alternates per division. I'm wondering how many per senator, what about part-time? Page 6, 5.2A makes reference to the coordinating council. Does that mean college council? That might need to be updated as well. Page 7 refers to term limits for, actually it doesn't refer to term limits for chairs, but in the sake of equality and equity throughout the bylaws, if we're talking about putting term limits for senators and for executive senators, which is rather new, then I would suggest also our chairs get term limits. The last 2 points would be just to add the word rules in front of amendment in 2 places in paragraph 8.3 on page 9, because it's unclear if it's which kind of amendment. Since you're talking about rules amendments, just add that word in there. And then finally, on page 11, there's no mention anywhere about the immediate past president. There used to be in the bylaws. So now on page 11, that's kind of lingering in the back. So I was wondering if you wanted to just double check and go through it, that that's consistent. So I put these in a piece of paper for you, and I hope you can take it back to the committee and go through it. I'm also concerned about going through our latest Senate goal that we all approved was, I don't have it in front of me, but it was all about looking at things through an equity lens. So maybe you didn't get a copy of that rule, but I think there would be many places in the bylaws to do that. So I appreciate it if you could come back or at least talk to the committee about these. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Yes, Tracy. And I'm sorry.
That's okay. Sorry about that. Let's see. I guess in the form of a question, John, you said many things in your presentation, one being that, tell me if I misunderstood you, I want to be clear.
Okay, I need, yes, Jose?
For 5 minutes.
Extend by 5 minutes? Is that a second, Jeff? Okay, are there any objections to extending this by 5 minutes? Okay, we're extended by 5 minutes.
Thank you, Gina. So you were trying to explain to the group that because adjuncts work for more than one college, you tried to explain that we weren't possibly vested in the shared governance process because there's a chance we might leave. But I think many people have shared, there's many adjuncts that also have been here for more than a year, more than 5 years, more than 10 years, more than 20 years. They're invested in the college. And also, isn't it the role and responsibility of the bylaws committee to represent not just themselves, but all of the constituents, everyone in the college? And I'm not saying that if they don't know what's coming across your desk or across your email. Like the email I sent to you, you didn't respond. I sent you a detailed document proposing changes. And I do think those changes should be shared with this Senate so they can see. It shouldn't stop with just 5 of you. This is too important of a matter.
So a couple of things I'll say. I guess I should have been more articulate early on. With regard to what the committee discussed about part-timers versus full-timers, it was that we weren't sure how to distinguish between the different kinds of part-timers, between someone who has been here for 20 plus years versus someone who just started this semester and is maybe going to be gone next semester, or has been here a year and is going to be gone next year. Not all part-timers are created equal. So we recognize that some part-timers have been here for a long time, are fully invested, but we weren't sure what algorithm to use to distinguish between those. So that's what I meant by that. As terms of your email, I did share your email with the committee, with all 5 of the members. If you want the email shared with the whole Senate, then you can email the whole Senate. But I shared it with the committee.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, Meredith?
Something different. I was confused about the wording. Well, and I guess a little bit of a broader question. Under 3.2, this is regarding terms of office. So it says office, the new language is officers shall be limited to serving no more than 3 consecutive terms. And that, so when you say 6 years there, would be a total of 6 years, those 3 consecutive terms?
Yeah, because the new language, if passed by the faculty, would change the terms to 2-year terms.
Okay.
So 3 terms would be 6 years.
Okay, and then it says in any capacity on the executive board. So who served their maximum 6 years will be eligible to serve. Okay, so is it that someone could serve in a capacity on the executive board for 6 years and then serve in a different capacity on the executive board for 6 years? Or is it, I guess it says any capacity.
Yeah, so I mean, I can see how that might be confusing, so maybe we could clarify that. I read that as you could, in theory, if you had someone who was so inclined, you could serve 6 years as treasurer, then 6 years as secretary, and so forth. But
So it does mean, like, someone could just stay on the executive board for...
if the Senate somehow one day finds the FDR, the Academic Senate, who wants to stick around forever, then that's how the language is right now. The language is right now, without these changes, there's no term limits on anything.
Okay, and so then that leads to my other question. The only other question I had was how did these particular the terms of service in general, you propose to be 2 years now, right? Okay, and so with a maximum for the executive board, did you determine those compared to other colleges, or?
We compared them just compared to what they are now here. So right now they're 1 year, and there were suggestions that, the job, particularly being on the executive board, is pretty big.
Yeah.
And it might take more than, a semester or a year to learn it. And so it might be better to have an exec that was seated for 2 years before having to figure out whether they want to do it again.
Okay.
So that was the reason for just
looking
lengthening
at this specific college's needs, not what other colleges are doing.
Right.
Okay.
And in terms of the term limits, in retrospect, I don't know that we need even term limits. I don't know that anyone wants to do this job for 6+ years, but there are no term limits at all right now.
Okay. I have a question on that note. So if and when this passes, I gotta follow my own rule. I'll email you.
Okay.
I just don't want to be looped in. We don't have to do this for 2 years, right?
No, you were elected, so we were clear that whatever changes, if these changes get approved, they don't affect anyone who was voted in before those changes took place. So you were only to be down for 1 more year.
Right? Oh, no.
No, then her 6 years, so she could be here for another 6 years. I know she's looking for it. She loves it so much.
1 year term. We're out of time. I'm sorry, Catherine. What I do recommend, though, is that it doesn't seem like we're ready to vote on this, or do you all want to vote on this? What's your pleasure? Here's what my understanding is, and John, please correct me, is that we're voting on these changes, but that doesn't mean that's it and that's all. The bylaws committee can revisit some of the issues that are not in this current bylaws, because these changes were made a year ago?
Yeah, aside from the library thing, yeah.
Yeah, so that's what's happening now. And it's not for us, this body will not say, yes, those are our bylaws. All we're voting on is if we're sending this version of the bylaws out to the entire academic senate, which is all faculty, all full-time faculty. So what is your pleasure? Yes, Lyman.
Well, I think since there's still a bunch of clearly unresolved issues for a few aspects of this, but perhaps not for the entirety of it, it's a little bit more time consuming, but it might be better served if we agree to vote on it piecemeal, to say, can we put a nail in this coffin, can we put a nail in this coffin, can we put a nail in this coffin, instead of just constantly sending the entire thing back and forth, back and forth. So that might be better. Just a thought.
I have a comment on that.
Actually, I'm looking for a motion.
Can we extend?
No, we can't. We're out of extensions. Okay. So if there's no motion, then we're coming back to this. I don't see a motion. Is there a motion to? Okay.
I motion to do what Lyman was suggesting, to go piece by piece. And that could be today, or that could be in 2 weeks, either way.
Or we could not have a motion and we could still talk about it. We could send it back, right?
Yes. Effectively, if we don't vote, then the bylaws committee still has work to do, is what we're saying. And so we want them to consider the issues that were brought up today, bring us a revisited version for a 4th read or whatever it is. And at that point in time, we'll decide whether we want to move it forward or not, or have additional input.
Can I ask the parliamentarian a quick question? Would it be appropriate for the bylaws committee to send, say, a survey to just the academic senate on these issues to see, yes, everyone thinks we need to change this, so we changed it, or 3 people say change this, everyone else says leave it. I don't want to go back to my committee and say, well, a couple of people said this, but I don't know what the body thinks.
Yes, you can poll, as the committee, right, it's your duty to poll and keep the pulse of the Senate, right, the Senate board, so you could do that, right, to gather and garner, what's supported, what isn't, so that you can do your due diligence and bring a body of work that potentially is going to get approved. Because that's your ultimate goal, is to bring us a body of work that the Senate can approve. So if polling or, emailing or taking suggestions or having an email where they can send suggestions gets us to that end, then it is appropriate.
You're also a subcommittee of this body, so it would be appropriate.
I think that's a great idea. I'd also like to recommend, if it seems logical to you guys, that we also send out a poll to all faculty that way and ask people what their department is and whether they're part-time or full-time. That way we can get the data department by department, how faculty feel about these issues, and that can inform how we act so that we can represent our
I'm sorry, Shannon.
institutions.
Actually, it starts here. We're not sending it out to the larger academic senate board until this body has made a decision.
I just mean informally so that we know how to proceed, so that we don't.
That's why you take things back to your divisions, your departments, and that's how we do that. Because each senator here is supposed to represent their own department. If you all represent the adjuncts, you can poll adjuncts, just like Jeff could poll counseling. Let's see, Tara could poll kinesiology. That's the role of the senator.
I was just trying to make it easier. If like one poll was sent out, then everybody wouldn't have to do it. But however is the best is fine.
Yes, we're out of time, so we do need to move on. Thank you. Okay, next we have Dr. Rose and Dr. Altounji on AP 5075.
Okay, so this is our 4th read of our policy on course attendance, adds, drops, and withdrawals. We appreciate all the input we've had so far. Following our last meeting, we sent out a link to all senators with a Google Doc so they could provide any suggestions. I checked it immediately before the Senate meeting, and I did not see any additional comments since our last meeting together. We again want to thank our distance ed folks for giving us information about what activity versus inactivity looks like in online classes. So at this time, we're just probably looking for a motion. Okay.
Yes, Russ.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Lindsay? Second? Okay, is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, okay, all those in favor of approving AP 5075, please do so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Nay? Any abstentions? Okay, this passes.
Thank you all.
I was this close to saying, signify by saying yabba dabba doo, but I chose not to do that. Thank you. Okay, next. I'm sorry, my computer died.
APPP 3400.
Okay, and that is Armia Walker and Lindsay Grimes, isn't it?
I'd like to say first that our what you see on board docs for this updated version is actually not the most updated version that we have because our group met on Friday and we had to get our document in by Wednesday. So we basically sent you the same document with a small revision, but now we have lots more revisions. Two of the things I wanted to address were Melissa's comments because that was the majority of the feedback that we got. We did add a definition for social justice, so that was one thing we added. And the other thing was that we were looking at the the definitions to put them into bullet points as opposed to numbering, but we decided not to do that because in conversation, how will people be able to say to D, for example? I'm looking at this particular definition. So even though they're not ranked in any order, we decided to keep the numbering as was.
Okay, yes, Melissa.
So I looked at what's on board docs. And what you're saying is what's up there is different from what's on board docs.
This is probably the same one that's on board docs.
This is it.
Yeah, but I'm saying we're still working on it. And so there are changes that we've made since this came up. And so that's why I was telling you in person, verbally.
Oh, so we can't vote on this today, it's in process. Oh,
we're still hearing back from lots of different constituency groups.
Yeah, we were hoping to get feedback from you all. And then when we come back again, that will be the final version on our end. Yeah.
Yes, Melissa.
Procedurally, well, two things. I looked for the definition of social justice. Can you direct me to the page or just tell me?
You want me to read it for you?
I can look at it, but sure, you could read it.
Because I don't have the document ready to share with people. We're still working on that. But
It's not on.
No, it's not here. It will be next time, though. I promise that.
Okay, thank you. Okay. And then also, I know you're taking it to other constituency groups. How is that, just procedurally, how does that work? You come here, we give you feedback, you go to the, I think you were at College Council, you brought it there, and they gave you feedback?
College Council, Classified Senate, Associated Students.
Classified Senate.
Yeah, Classified Senate, us.
And then how do we, when does it all stop and when do we vote and then they vote? Is that what's going to happen? They vote, we all vote, and then it votes. Okay.
Yes.
Hi, I kind of just wanted to reiterate some topics that we discussed. I shared this with my committee, which is the academic committee. And one thing that we were kind of hoping to get some clarification on was on the rubric questions. One of them mentions like is this policy student-centered? And so I'm kind of just wondering like what the threshold is, or if we can.
So we added a little bit.
Okay.
That was one of the changes that we actually did make. So instead of coming up with a definition for student-centered, we added a few clarifying questions. So we included, does it include student-friendly language and outcomes, and does it focus first on the student's needs, well-being, and success?
Okay. And would it be possible to include like maybe something about including students' opinions or including students' voices? Because we often feel like associated students or just students in general aren't like inquired about a lot of things, and we often feel left out or voiceless. So if that's something that could be added, that'd be appreciated. And then just something else that I wanted to ask about was how could this affect curriculum, and just like also, I mean, for me, it's like alarming that 50% of our student body is Latino, yet we continue to be like the lowest to transfer or the lowest to have like academic success rates. And so we kind of just want to see how this could equal to greater social justice on campus and curriculum in general.
So there are a couple things to answer your question. If you look at K, it does say, does this policy amplify the voices of marginalized students? If you would like us to change that to all students, because all students aren't necessarily marginalized, what would you, is that what you're saying?
No, I think it's important to highlight marginalized students.
And then as far as curriculum, we, if you look at M, does this policy help to inform the development of liberatory outcomes? Now, liberatory outcomes, traditional outcomes measure like what a student is learning in the class, right? And so we're hoping that curriculum will be, through this policy, will have to include something that amplifies marginalized student voices, that amplifies like what you said about Latinx students.
Jeff?
Please extend by 5 minutes. Motion.
Motion to extend. I see Margaret first, so second by Margaret. Are there any objections to extending this by 5? This is our last extension, I think. This is our first one, I'm sorry. Anyone opposed to extending this by 5 minutes? Okay, then we were approved by unanimous consent.
So, yes, so we're hoping that this policy would help shape curriculum, much like the work that Dr. Rose is doing, making sure everything is seen through a student lens. We may be having to filter some curriculum through this policy as well. To your point, yes, we feel that's important as well, and that's what we're hoping. So thank you for that
We
comment.
also do have, up above, I forget which number it is, but the policy talks about professional development of faculty. And I think that's a piece of it too, is developing curriculum that is in line with this document. We also have Suzanne Iwaniki, who is on our committee, who is looking at a liberatory education center on campus. And that, the point of that is to I think, for curriculum. It's for professional development.
It's for staff to interact with students, to get feedback. That's one of the goals that we have.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, so this is just for an update. We'll be voting on this hopefully in 2 weeks. Okay, thank you.
If you have any updates, please inform myself or Lindsay, and we'll bring our final version to you guys next time.
Are you open to those from anyone to email you?
By anyone?
Any person, any senator?
Oh, yeah, sure. Like anyone that works here, any student, not, someone from across the street, but anyone who,
is invested
in this policy, yes, because we want you all to have a say, because we really do want it to work, so.
Thank you again. Okay, next we have Crystal Kohlrock, AP 3300. I'm sorry, it's a BP.
Oh, good.
My bad.
That's it. Thank you so much. You can stay up here.
I'll stay with you.
Good afternoon, thank you. Second read, BP 3300 Public Records. Any comments, concerns, thoughts?
Yes, Melissa.
I think I asked this last time, but if you could refresh my memory, has now something else changed? Or is this our second read of the same thing from last week?
It's
From
the-
last month?
From 2 weeks ago. I've changed nothing.
Nothing has changed?
No, not since you saw it 2 weeks ago.
Thank you.
With that, I'm willing to entertain a motion. Yes, Russ.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Okay, there's Lean seconds. Are there any objections to approving this by unanimous consent? Okay, are there any objections? Okay, we're approved. Thank you. Okay, next we have Crystal Kohlrock.
No.
BP 7410, location of district workshops.
I'll entertain any thoughts or conversation. I'll just say that this one is old. I haven't reviewed this one in a long time. It basically just talks about where we will have district workshops and retreats and how we'll make those decisions.
This is a first read as well.
That's correct. There's not a lot of changes that we made to it, basically just a few wording changes. It just changes the opening sentence, and then in number 4, just, you see how it said his designee, we thought maybe the president could be a woman or something else. So, just straight up designee. Inclusive, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes, Melissa.
Does this policy preclude the district from having workshops on Zoom or hybrid or fully online at all?
No, not at all. It's talking about physical locations.
Anyone else? If there's no feedback, then I would entertain a motion for approval. Yes, Lean, and second by Lindsay. Okay, any discussion on this? Yes, Melissa.
Well, it says location of district workshops, and it lists specifically for physical locations. Could it be that someone in the future says, well, I'm going to host a location, I'm going to host a workshop, it's going to be on Zoom, and then someone would say, no, in our BP, it doesn't say you can have it on Zoom. It doesn't say you can't either. But it doesn't say Zoom or online is acceptable. So what are your thoughts on?
Well, I think what we were thinking about in this, in the way it was written in the Ed Code, is to talk about where the district spends its money and wanting to keep that as much as possible at in-district facilities or at educational institutions or at nonprofits. I think that's what this is. If it was a Zoom meeting, there probably wouldn't be much of a district cost involved.
Any other question, any other discussion? Okay, there's a motion on the floor. All those in favor of approving this BP signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Opposed? Any abstentions? I'm gonna do yabba dabba do next time, I promise you. This is approved. Thank you so much, Crystal. Oh wait, Crystal again.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
That's the enrollment priorities, AP 5055.
That's correct. And I'll just draw your attention to priority number 1. We've had some new legislation that's coming into play as of July 1st, which is putting student parents with a dependent child or children under the age of 18 in the priority 1 status for registration.
I'm sorry. Again, yes. I move to approve. Move to approve. Is that a second? Okay. Is there any discussion? Melissa?
I'd like to bring this to my department because this is about students enrolling. And I'd like to see what they have to say unless you tell me that this AP 5055 has nothing to do with non-credit students, then I don't want to take it to my department. Does it apply to non-credit students?
Credit. It's mostly credit. There isn't really, our non-credit students have the priority of non-credit. It's only until they come to credit that this takes into effect.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. Are there, yes, Tracy?
I'm not an administrator, so I don't know everything about everything on campus, but thinking about our student athletes, is there something in here that covers them? Just want to make sure that
They're they're priority 2, I think, or 3. They're in the most. 4. Yeah. 4? Mm-hmm. Yeah, 4. So they go on the 4th or 5th grade.
Thank you for that, because I couldn't see it, and I just wanted to speak on it.
Yes, Catherine.
I just want to make sure, this is just up for review. There's no changes since the last time it came to the Academic Senate?
Yeah, thank you for that. Actually, President Lopez brought that up to me. You guys just saw this in 2021. But as I said, there's new legislation that just came into play. That's an Ed Code that's going into effect on July 1, which moves student parents into priority 1.
Okay. Did that answer your question, Catherine? Go ahead, Lenny.
That Ed Code specifically says student parents, not people who are responsible for others. They have to literally be parents of the... I mean, I'm not saying what the Ed Code is, I'm saying is that what the Ed Code is.
Thank God Dr. Altounji is here.
Speaking of people who know everything.
It's defined as student parents. It's a guardian who is responsible for a child under the age of 18.
That was the word I was looking for, guardian. Thank you.
We could adjust that if you'd like. I could say student parents or guardians. Would that be preferable?
Yes.
No. Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Let's do it.
Thanks.
Crystal, or President, and then Crystal. Would the guardians include people that might be fostering children?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make that delineation. Thank you.
They would be a guardian.
Great.
Okay, so I'm going to ask, I think it's Lee, you made the initial. I'm going to ask that maybe, you made the initial, I'm sorry, Lindsay. Maybe to amend your motion to include
Guardian, the language of guardianship.
Okay. So can you repeat it again?
So I moved to change, I want
To approve this.
to approve this document with the change that was discussed about guardians.
Okay, and is the seconder? Okay. Okay. Are we done with discussion? Awesome. Okay, here we go. Those in favor signify by saying yabba dabba do. Okay, is there anyone who is opposed? Say nay. Okay,
Abstaining.
abstentions, one abstention. Okay, this is approved. Thank you.
Thank you all very, very much. Appreciate your help today. Appreciate it.
Okie dokie. So next, we have our subcommittee. I'm going to ask, subcommittees. We only have one person on the subcommittee. I need a motion to approve this person for that subcommittee, which is Lena. Yes, Melissa? Okay, is there a second? Danielle's a second. Are there any any objections to approving this by unanimous consent? Seeing none, it's approved by unanimous consent. Congratulations, Lena. Okay, and now we have our hiring committee. Professor Walker, you have the floor. Yes.
What does in parentheses see public comment mean?
That's something that board docs, I don't know. That's my short answer. I don't know, but it's just, I guess it's, I don't know, what does that mean for board docs? It says PC public content.
Oh, thank you.
I saw the same thing. Okay. Professor Walker.
Okay, so we will be voting for the hiring committee for the custodial supervisor. Typically, well, in the past, we've been using the poll everywhere, so I ask that you take out your computers or phones. Yes.
Can I be withdrawn from that? Because I have a doctor's appointment tomorrow. They have their initial meeting tomorrow. And I can't go to it, so.
Well, then we don't need a vote. Thank you.
Made it easy. I wanted to be that member.
Okay, in that case, I'm looking for a motion to approve the two people who are interested in.
Rhonda Williams and Jacob Tucker.
Thank you. Shannon?
Yes, I move to approve.
Okay, do I have a second? Yes, Jose? Yes, Jose? Second? Okay. Is there any discussion on this? Okay, seeing none, we can approve this by unanimous consent if there are no objections. Are there any objections? Seeing none, this is approved by unanimous consent. Ooh, that was easy. Yay. Okay, proposed future agenda items. Okay, then we'll move right along. Announcements? Russ?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn, is there a second? Okay, Lena's a second. Any objections? Okay, we are adjourned.